hole. I could see it after all this time. I couldn't tell you what it looked like, but I had thought about it a lot. Maybe, if you pressed me, I'd describe it like your first bite of chocolate cake, or like having your head beat in with a hammer, or maybe more like sailing on a beautiful, windy day. A bit of everything I knew was inside of it. It had taken so long to get there, but it was worth it. It had to be worth it. That was what I told myself at the time, at least. I won't try to lie to you and say I wasn't frightened. I was. In fact, that's why I'm even able to tell you the story. It's not a long one. What a peculiar thing it was, though. I'd been eager to do this, to be part of this thing. I'm really not supposed to be talking about any of this, but I don't think they will be watching me here. Because if I post it here, it's just a story, right? Make-believe. I'd spent years training for the moment as I ripped through the sky at hypersonic speeds. We had discovered after a lot of trial and error that going in too slowly was invariably fatal. Drones could do it, but the human body needed to be transitioned extremely quickly. Otherwise, the differences in time dilation between the part of you that had gone in and the part that still remained would be too great. You'd die. Even at Mach 9, it was still risky. Only 50% of those who went through made it back. Despite my fears, I didn't care. I'd read all the reports. I'd trained for years. And my time had finally come. I maxed the speed on my scramjets as the end grew ever larger in front of me. I wasn't much in the way of windows due to the extreme speeds, but I did have a camera and a display. I'd mostly navigated by instrument, but I still wasted some precious moments just appreciating it on that little screen. Even though I had been told so much about it, I still found myself surprised by just how strange it really was. This hole in the sky which led to seemingly nowhere. I was almost there, almost at the gateway to nowhere. The closer I got, the more its presence became obvious. The entity was talking to me. Couldn't understand it at first, but every passing kilometer brought me closer to it as the tear in the sky grew ever larger to my rapidly changing perspective. The closer I got, clearer its thoughts became. The more they became my own. There was a brief discourse between us. I'm not sure if brief is the right word, but I think it was accurate, as it lasted only a quarter of a second or so, despite it feeling like the lifetime of the universe. Now I speak strangely. I understand why the others behaved the way they did after returning. A few who did, at least. It changes you once you have that conversation with it. Tells you things you couldn't imagine. I snapped out of it mere seconds before I was about to breach the hole in the sky. But after everything it had told me, I couldn't do it. I knew what lay within was just an empty vacuum. That's why I was in a rocket plane after all. Jets won't work in such a place. But it wasn't completely empty, and after conversing with the entity, I felt sorry for it. Was it a danger? I don't know, maybe. As it tore that hole ever larger over the decades, desperate to escape the nothingness, it also brought with it a void which happily leached the atmosphere from our fragile planet. Every day, more of it escapes into the void beyond the portal, like water through a drain. It wasn't much now, but the entity intends to come through. I'd been told it before by other pilots who had gone in, but I knew for sure now. It had told me, which means the hole keeps growing. The bigger it becomes, the more it takes, like a hoover slurping the very breath from our planet. I veered away at the last moment, just barely missing the hole that led to the end of everything I knew and understood. Mission Control wasn't happy. They asked why I had missed my objective. I told them it was a technical error. It wasn't, of course. I didn't have enough propellant for a second pass, though, so I killed the jets and started to let myself decelerate. I also still had the rockets if I needed them to help get back to base. I don't really understand how it had connected so deeply with me in such a short moment. The other pilots had described it as euphoric. I'm not sure I would call it that. It was more like hugging an old friend, being stabbed in the eye, trying on a new pair of jeans, looking at yourself in the mirror. It confused, and I found it hard to even operate the vehicle as my mind reeled, poring over what felt like a lifetime's worth of feelings and memories it had given me. Once I had decelerated enough to make a hard turn, I decided to go back around and make a second pass. Some sense of clarity was returning, and I no longer felt quite so compelled to disengage. Mission Control reminded me, though, that I didn't have enough fuel for a second pass. Felt funny to hear it because I didn't care. I certainly didn't care. Did I? Fuck them and fuck me. I'm still not sure how to get out. I'm just trying to pull myself together. Mission Control has my back, so I'm in good company. Not sure how. Mission Control.